"You think you're tough, huh?" Connor shouted, charging across the tournament hall. Kendrick had just turned around when the punch came flying toward his face. Beside him, Kahlil was shoved to the floor by Jake. This wasn't karate anymore. No more rules, no more honor. This was rage. This was ego. Two black belts who couldn't accept the truth they had been defeated by two black kids in yellow belts they once mocked. No one had time to intervene. But what Jake and Connor never saw coming was, this time the boys didn't back down. No flinching, no fear. Kendrick twisted, driving a sharp left hook into Connor's jaw, the exact move his father had drilled into him night after night in their garage. Meanwhile, Kahlil rolled to his feet, dodged Jake's wild kick, and returned fire with a flurry of strikes, each one clean, controlled, and devastating. It was over in seconds, but when it ended, both top-tier black belts were sprawled across the floor, bloodied, broken, humiliated, and the crowd dead silent. Silent, because they had just witnessed something unbelievable. Silent, because strength had nothing to do with belt color. It came from suffering, from quiet perseverance, from the silent power of two black kids who had been pushed too far. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The dojo was quiet when Kahlil and Kendrick Johnson first stepped through the door, not because anyone noticed them, but because no one did. They stood at the edge of the mat, two 14-year-old boys in crisp white G's and brand-new yellow belts tied with care by their father that morning. Around them, the Silver Tiger Dojo buzzed with confident students stretching, chatting, showing off their higher-ranked belts, and not one of them looked like the Johnson twins. Somerset was a small, mostly white town, the kind where a black family moving in still drew second glances. And in this dojo, karate wasn't just a sport, it was a legacy. New kids, someone muttered from the far side of the room. Kahlil heard it, but kept his eyes forward. His brother did the same. They moved like mirrors. When Kahlil adjusted his stance, Kendrick shifted too. Same height, same build, same heartbeat. Sensei Carl called them over without even glancing up. Yellow belts, center mat, basic forms. They obeyed. Their father had told them to be respectful, to listen, to learn. But respect only works when it's given back. And in that room, respect was already in short supply. The warm-up drills were simple, low stances, focused breathing, but Kahlil could feel the eyes on them. Every time he moved, someone was watching not with curiosity, but with quiet judgment, like they were waiting for him to mess up, like they already knew he didn't belong. Beside him, Kendrick was silent, but his jaw was clenched tight. His movements sharp, deliberate, even when the others around them were relaxed. From across the room came a laugh, not loud, just loud enough. Aaron Davis and Luke Reynolds, two black belts, older, taller, smirking from the sidelines. "Look at the twins," Aaron said, voice slick with sarcasm, like watching a pair of shadows copy real fighters. Luke chuckled. "Think they're used to this kind of discipline? Probably more used to street fights." Kahlil's step faltered. Only for a second, but Kendrick felt it, like always. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Twin instinct carried the message. Don't react, not here. But it still burned. Sensei Carl didn't say a word, didn't even glance their way. In that moment, Kahlil realized this wasn't just a place to learn karate. This was a battlefield. And they were already under attack. "Partner drills," Sensei Carl announced, clapping his hands. "Pair up with someone at your level." Kahlil scanned the room. Most yellow belts had already grouped off. Before he could move, Aaron stepped in front of him, grinning. "I'll take this one," he said. "Let's see what he's got." Luke was already facing Kendrick, cracking his knuckles like he'd been waiting all day. Kendrick opened his mouth to speak, but Kahlil gently nudged his arm. They knew better. "You're lucky," Luke said, dropping into a loose stance. "Not every rookie gets to train with the best." Kahlil bowed, low, controlled. Aaron didn't. The moment the drill started, Kahlil felt the difference. Aaron wasn't pulling his punches. Every strike hit a little too hard. Every block pushed just a bit too far. This wasn't training, it was a message. "You don't belong here, and we'll make sure you know it." Kendrick grunted. Nearby, Luke had landed a cheap shot to his ribs. Kahlil bit back the anger, swallowed it. Their father's voice echoed in his mind. "Let them talk, let them swing. Your day will come." But in that dojo, on that mat, it felt like that day would never come. The fourth week came with bruises no one could explain. Kahlil's forearm turned dark purple. Kendrick winced every time he breathed. But in class, they said nothing. Push through it, Sensei Carl told them. Pain builds character. Aaron and Luke took that as permission. "Real sparring today," Aaron said, grinning as he adjusted his gloves. Time to see what street kids are really made of. The comment stung, not because it was loud, but because it wasn't. He said it just low enough for only the twins to hear. Calculated. Precise. Kahlil nodded stiffly. He didn't speak. But inside, something cracked. They went through the motions block, strike, step, but the contact wasn't light, not like it was supposed to be. A jab to the ribs. A sweep that slammed Kendrick hard into the mat. He gasped, rolled over, and forced himself back up. Because falling was one thing, but staying down, that was never an option. The other students said nothing. They watched. Some even flinched. But no one stepped in. And when class ended, the Johnson twins walked out like they always did. Silent, sore, and more determined than ever not to break. By the third week, they stopped waiting for things to get better. Aaron's accidental elbow had left a deep bruise on Kahlil's shoulder. Kendrick's ribs ached every time he twisted. But no one offered help. No one said a word. The dojo was loud with movement, but silent where it mattered. Each session felt the same drills disguised as beatdowns. Lessons taught with fists instead of respect. "You ever wonder why we're still here?" Kendrick asked one night, his voice low, as he eased onto his bed, holding his side. Kahlil didn't answer. He was staring at the garage door, thinking. Finally, he said, "Yeah, every day." "So why stay?" Kahlil turned to him. "Because if we quit now, they win." That night, while the house slept, Kahlil stood in the garage, staring at the old punching bag their dad had once used during deployments. He stepped forward and hit it once, twice, again. Not hard, not clean, but it was something. The sound brought Kendrick out of bed. He didn't say a word. He just grabbed the other pair of gloves and stood beside his brother. No plan, no coach, just bruises and quiet fire. They didn't know what they were training for yet. But deep down they knew it was coming. Their father noticed. Not because they told him, but because he knew how to see. Malcolm Johnson had led men through war zones. He recognized pain when it was hidden under silence. Kahlil flinched when he sat. Kendrick moved with caution, favoring one side. "Everything good at that dojo?" he asked over dinner, voice calm. Yeah, Kahlil replied. Just tough workouts, Kendrick added. Malcolm didn't push, he just nodded, eyes lingering on the way Kendrick cradled his ribs. That night, after the boys had gone to bed, he walked into the garage, turned on the light, looked at the old heavy bag swaying slightly in the corner. The next evening, he changed the routine. He didn't drop them off at the curb, he parked, walked in, and sat in the parents' section with arms crossed and eyes sharp. The shift was immediate. Aaron and Luke didn't smile. They didn't joke. They didn't swing quite as hard. Sensei Carl greeted Malcolm like a neighbor warm, rehearsed, performative. We're proud of the boys. They're progressing, he said. Malcolm didn't smile back. He watched. He saw his sons move like they were waiting to be hit. He saw eyes avoiding theirs. And he understood. This wasn't training. It was quiet war. The next class felt colder. Not the temperature, the looks. Even with their father watching from the side, something had shifted. The room wasn't just indifferent now, it was hostile. Aaron and Luke kept their distance during drills. No comments, no grins, just glares. Sensei Carl clapped his hands. Partner, drills again. Let's push form today, strong stances, clean movements. Kahlil paired with a boy named Trevor. Kendrick found himself opposite a quiet girl named Melissa. For a moment, it seemed normal. Until the rotation started. Partners switched. And suddenly, the twins were standing across from Aaron and Luke again. Don't worry, Aaron said, his tone smooth like oil. I'll keep it light. Wouldn't want to upset your dad. Kahlil tightened his fists but stayed still. The drill began. A slow exchange, block, counter, step. Then Aaron slipped or claimed to. His fist caught Kahlil across the mouth. Blood welled instantly. Oops, Aaron said, almost bored. My bad. Kahlil stumbled, tasting copper. He looked at Sensei Carl, just 10 feet away. Nothing. Not a word, not a glance. Kahlil wiped his mouth, looked at Kendrick. His brother was already staring back. They didn't say it out loud, but they both knew. This wasn't just practice anymore. Kendrick's turn came seconds later. Luke moved in fast, too fast. Not with the rhythm of a drill, but the hunger of someone who wanted to dominate. A sweep, a shoulder check. Kendrick hit the mat hard. Air knocked from his lungs. The room paused, just for a breath, then moved on like nothing happened. You okay? Melissa whispered from the sidelines. Kendrick nodded, even though he wasn't. He got up slowly. No one offered a hand. Aaron smirked. Luke rolled his shoulders. Guess that's what happens when you mess with seniors, Luke said under his breath. Kahlil's jaw tightened. They kept going through the drill, but the damage had already been done. Not just the bruises, the message. The twins were outsiders, punching bags with smiles. Invisible targets in a place that preached discipline but protected bullies. And Sensei Carl still smiling from the front of the room, still calling out praise, still turning his back. Kendrick stood straighter. Kahlil wiped the blood from his lip. They didn't break, not in front of them, but the pain was changing shape, becoming something sharper, quieter, like steel being forged in secret. And one day soon, that steel would cut back. That night, the twins sat in silence on their front porch. The bruises didn't bother them as much as the silence in that dojo, the silence of adults who saw everything and chose nothing. I think they like it, Kendrick finally said, voice low, the power, knowing they can hit us, and no one stops them. Kahlil didn't answer right away. He was staring at his fists, small, calloused, shaking just a little. "Maybe they do," he said. "But they don't know what we're doing when they're not looking." Kendrick turned toward him. "You mean the bag?" "I mean all of it. The training, the watching, the remembering. We know how they move. We know what they do. We're learning more from them than they think." Kendrick breathed out slow. "So, what's the plan?" Kahlil looked ahead, past the porch lights and into the dark street. "We survive, we get stronger, and when the time comes..." He paused. Not dramatic, just certain. "We don't hold back." The front door opened behind them. Their dad stepped out, a look passing between them all. Nothing needed to be said. The war had already begun, and the next phase wouldn't happen in the dojo. It would happen at home. The 6th week opened with partner rotation. "Advanced belts will work with beginners today," Sensei Carl announced. On paper, it sounded like mentorship. In reality, it was permission. Aaron grinned the moment his name was called, alongside Kahlil's. Luke gave Kendrick a wink that didn't feel friendly. They bowed, but only one side meant it. Aaron demonstrated a block slow, deliberate. "Try it," he said, voice syrup smooth. Kahlil mimicked the move. Before he could reset, Aaron struck quick jab to the ribs. Kahlil folded, gasping. "Dropped your guard," Aaron said, feigning concern. "In a real fight, that gets you hurt." Kendrick was watching from across the mat. He took a step forward, but Luke intercepted, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry," Luke said softly. "He'll learn." Kendrick's fists balled, but he stayed in place. The drill continued. Kahlil got knocked down again. Luke missed a block and cuffed Kendrick across the jaw. Everything looked like training from a distance. But the bruises were real. The message louder than any shout. "We're in charge. You don't belong." And Sensei Carl, still pacing, still smiling, still blind by choice. For the twins, something shifted that day. Fear turned to anger, and anger was ready to move. They barely spoke on the ride home. Malcolm glanced at them through the rearview mirror, saw the marks, the clenched jaws, the 1,000-yard stare. But the boys didn't complain. They never did. In the garage that night, Kahlil threw punches into the heavy bag with something different in his eyes. Not frustration, not fear. Focus. Every strike had purpose, every breath measured. Kendrick held the mitts, adjusting silently, then stepped in to work the drills himself. Their father watched from the doorway, arms crossed. Finally, he spoke. "They're crossing lines." Neither boy stopped. "They're not just teaching discipline," Malcolm continued. "They're hiding behind it." Still no response, just fists hitting leather. Then Kendrick looked up. "They want to break us." "They won't," Kahlil added. Quick and sure. Malcolm stepped into the garage, picked up a pair of gloves, held them out. "You boys want to keep playing by their rules. Or start learning mine." The twins froze, turned toward him. "What rules?" Kahlil asked. "The kind that end fights," Malcolm said, his voice steady. "Not win points." And just like that, the training changed. The garage became their real dojo, and what they learned there wasn't about belts. It was about survival. Malcolm didn't teach forms. No kata, no bowing rituals. He taught them how to strike fast and end things faster, how to keep their feet under pressure, how to read body language like a battlefield. "Forget the belt," he said. "Fight like it's your life." Night after night, the drills grew sharper, faster, real. No sparring with pads, no pulled punches. Kahlil learned to use his size to trap. Kendrick learned to use his timing to slip, redirect, and counter. Malcolm adjusted their stances, rewired their reflexes, and pushed them until they collapsed from sweat, then helped them up and pushed them again. He never asked for complaints. And they never gave any, because for the first time in weeks, they felt in control. One night, after a particularly brutal round, Kendrick dropped to the mat, chest heaving. Malcolm sat beside him, towel in hand. "You know why we do this here?" he asked. Kahlil answered for them both. "Because no one else is going to fight for us." Malcolm nodded. "That dojo won't save you. The belts won't save you, but this..." He tapped his son's chest over his heart. "This is where your real power lives." Silent, but ready to rise. 4 weeks passed. At school, at the dojo, nothing changed on the surface. Kahlil and Kendrick still showed up early, still bowed to everyone, still got paired with Aaron and Luke more often than coincidence allowed. But under the surface, everything was different. They didn't flinch anymore, didn't fumble, didn't look afraid. They still took the hits, but they took them steady. Aaron noticed it first. "How come you're not breathing hard?" he whispered after a hard body shot. Kahlil just smiled. Kendrick didn't flinch when Luke grabbed him in a choke setup. Instead, he let him, then used the grip to reposition, redirect, and slip free. Luke blinked, confused. "I thought you were new." Kendrick didn't answer. He didn't have to. At home, the drills had gotten faster, smarter, sharper. Malcolm no longer held pads. Now he pushed them with resistance, made them fight from bad positions, coached them in strategy. "Know your enemy," he said. "Know their habits. Know how they breathe." By now, the twins could close their eyes and picture every move Aaron and Luke would make. They weren't just reacting anymore. They were planning. And that meant something big was coming. Kahlil started moving differently in class. Not arrogant, just solid. His stances were rooted, his timing sharper. When Aaron tried another accidental elbow during a drill, Kahlil caught it, blocked clean, held eye contact. Didn't say a word. Aaron laughed it off, but there was something new in his eyes. Doubt. Kendrick began controlling distance during sparring. When Luke charged in, Kendrick angled off, made him miss, then touched his ribs lightly, not hard, just precise. A clean point, if anyone had been watching. But Sensei Carl didn't call it, he just nodded and moved on. Still blind. Still safe. But the other students were watching now. Whispers started. Are they really yellow belts? Where'd they learn that? It didn't matter. The twins weren't there for approval. They weren't there to prove anything to Sensei Carl. They were there for one reason: to finish what had been started. At home, their father watched them move in sync, sweat pouring down, bruises fading, eyes sharper. He didn't speak much during training anymore, because they already knew what needed to be done. The dojo had taught them pain, but the garage had taught them purpose. And soon, that purpose would be tested in front of everyone. The night before registration closed for the Tri-County Open, Malcolm gathered his sons in the garage. The heavy bag hung still, like it was listening. "I'm putting your names in the open division," he said. Kahlil paused mid-rap. "Open that's for." "Everyone," Malcolm interrupted. "Regardless of belt, no limits." Kendrick looked up from the floor. "That means black belts. That means them." Malcolm nodded. "I know." A silence settled. Not fear, something heavier. Conviction. Kahlil tightened the straps on his gloves. Good. Then they'll see us coming. You won't get a warm-up, Malcolm warned. They'll go hard. They'll expect you to break. Kendrick stood, let them expect it. That night, the twins trained like it was already fight day. Malcolm drilled them on movement, pressure, control under fatigue. He barked commands, pushed them past exhaustion, then smiled quietly when they didn't quit. They think they know who you are, he said as the session ended. They think they've defined you. He looked at his sons, both bruised, sweaty, unbowed. Don't just prove them wrong, he said. Make them remember. Kahlil and Kendrick didn't speak. They just looked at each other and nodded. Because when silent power rises, it doesn't need to shout. The gym was buzzing. The Tri-County Open drew fighters from all over the state, dozens of dojos, hundreds of spectators. And right in the middle of it all, Kahlil and Kendrick sat side by side in folding chairs, yellow belts tight, uniforms spotless, eyes locked forward. Whispers followed them like shadows. They're in the open division, yellow belts. Must be a mistake. Aaron and Luke were already warming up across the room, laughing with teammates, confident and loud, until they saw the twins. The laughter stopped. Are they serious? Aaron muttered, stretching. Luke smirked. This'll be fun. When the announcer called the first match, Luke Reynolds versus Kendrick Johnson, a hush fell over the ring. Kendrick stepped forward, calm. Luke swaggered in like it was already over. They bowed. Ref signaled. Begin. Luke came in hard-fast flurry, all aggression. But Kendrick didn't move back. He angled, slipped the first punch, then struck one clean shot to the solar plexus. Luke stumbled. The crowd murmured. Kendrick pressed forward, caught the rhythm, and landed again a sharp hook to the ribs. Luke gasped. Point Johnson. It was quiet then. The kind of quiet that comes when a room watches everything they thought they knew start to fall apart. Luke's face flushed with disbelief. This wasn't happening. Not in public, not against a yellow belt. He came at Kendrick harder, sloppier, now wild kicks, flailing punches. The precision was gone. All that remained was pride. Kendrick stayed composed, let him swing, watched, waited. Then counter. A quick step inside, palm strike to the chest, spin, low sweep. Luke crashed to the mat with a thud that echoed across the gym. Point Johnson, match Johnson. The referee raised Kendrick's hand. Luke just lay there for a moment, breathing heavy, beaten. The crowd erupted in confused chatter. In the stands, some clapped, others whispered. Aaron watched from across the room, frozen. He turned to Kahlil. You're next, he muttered. Kahlil didn't blink. Minutes later, their names were called. Kahlil stepped into the ring. Aaron followed. They bowed, silence. The match began fast. Aaron struck first sharp front kick. Kahlil absorbed it, responded with a hook, then a knee to the ribs. Aaron stumbled. Gasps from the crowd. He came again desperate. Kahlil ducked, pivoted, drove his shoulder in, then tossed him clean to the ground. Point Johnson. Aaron sat up, dazed, and the room was no longer on his side. Aaron rose to his feet, but the confidence was gone. His hands shook, his breath came fast. Across from him, Kahlil stood still, not mocking, not smiling, just waiting. The ref called, "Ready." Aaron nodded barely. Begin. This time, he didn't attack. He hesitated, and Kahlil moved first. A feint, a jab, a crushing low kick to the thigh. Aaron winced, stumbled. Kahlil closed in elbow to the chest, then a sweep that sent Aaron crashing again. He didn't bounce back up this time. He looked toward his coach, toward Sensei Karl. But no help came. The ref stepped in. Point Johnson match Johnson. The room erupted, part shock, part awe. Aaron sat on the mat, staring at nothing. His belt looked smaller now. His rank meant less than ever before. Sensei Karl clapped politely, but his face was pale, because he understood something now, something dangerous. The power in that dojo was shifting, and everyone had just seen it happen. The Johnson twins walked off the mat. No cheers, no showboating, just calm steps, steady breaths, silent pride. Their moment had come, and they didn't need a belt to prove it. They had something stronger, something no one could take. They thought it ended with the match, that once the points were scored, the crowd clapped, and the medals handed out, it would be over. But it wasn't, because humiliation doesn't disappear quietly. And for some, losing in front of a crowd feels like betrayal. Aaron and Luke didn't leave the tournament quietly. They waited. Outside the gym, by the parking lot. The Johnson twins stepped out into the evening air, still riding the silence of victory. Their dad was parked at the curb, waving them over. Then came the shout. "Hey!" They turned. Aaron and Luke were there, not in uniforms now, just jeans, sneakers, and fury. "No ref out here," Luke said. "No crowd to save you." Kahlil barely had time to speak before the first punch flew. Aaron lunged. Kendrick blocked instinct, training, countered fast. Then chaos. It wasn't sparring anymore. It wasn't drills. It wasn't about belts. It was raw, dirty, desperate. But the twins didn't panic. They didn't swing wild. They moved like they'd trained precise, fast, quiet. And when it ended, Aaron and Luke were on the ground, bleeding, broken, and stunned, because the boys they thought they could break had never been breakable. The commotion drew a crowd. Coaches, parents, even a few competitors doubled back toward the lot. Malcolm arrived just as Aaron tried to stand, wiping blood from his nose. "What happened?" a voice shouted. "Is someone calling security?" Malcolm stepped between the twins and their attackers. Calm. Measured. They jumped them. A parent said, "I saw it. The twins didn't start anything." Sensei Karl appeared, breathless, eyes darting between the boys, the blood, the people watching. "A misunderstanding," he said quickly. "They're all students. Emotions just got out of hand." Malcolm turned. "No," he said flatly. "This wasn't new. This started weeks ago, inside your dojo, and you let it happen." Karl froze. The crowd fell silent. One of the moms spoke next. "My son said those two bullied the twins all the time, called them names, hit them too hard during class." Another nodded. "I pulled my daughter out because of it." Karl's mouth opened, but no words came out. Then came the flashing red and blue. Someone had called the police. Statements were taken, names recorded, and for the first time, Aaron and Luke didn't look untouchable. They looked like what they were, exposed. The officers separated the boys, asked questions calmly. Aaron muttered something about getting even. Luke stayed quiet, staring at the ground. Kahlil and Kendrick stood together. Steady, respectful, they answered clearly, said what happened, no more, no less. Malcolm stood nearby, arms folded, watching every word exchanged. After a short review, the lead officer turned to Aaron and Luke. "You two are lucky," he said. "No serious damage this time, but it's clear who started it." Aaron opened his mouth, then shut it. The officer turned to Malcolm. "We're filing a report if you want to press charges." "No," Malcolm said, "but their parents should know. And their sensei." He looked at Carl. "You run a place where kids are supposed to grow. Learn discipline. You failed them all." Carl didn't respond. Just nodded slowly, eyes low. The crowd had thinned, but the message remained. Later that night, back at home, Malcolm sat with his sons on the porch. "You did what you had to," he said. "You didn't start it, you finished it." Kendrick nodded. Kahlil looked up at the stars. They weren't angry, they weren't even proud. Just quiet. Because sometimes the loudest victories are the ones no one hears. Monday came like any other. Same school, same morning announcements, but in the halls, eyes followed the twins with something different. Not fear, not pity. Respect. Someone nodded at Kendrick by the lockers. Another clapped to Kahlil on the back in the cafeteria. No one said much. They didn't have to. The video had made its rounds. A shaky phone recording from the parking lot just a few seconds long, enough to show who attacked who and who stood their ground. At the dojo, the shift was quieter. Luke and Aaron were gone taking time off, Sensei Carl claimed. The classes felt lighter, more focused. No one dared mock anymore. Sensei Carl pulled the twins aside after class. "I owe you both an apology," he said, his voice low. The boys listened, didn't interrupt. "I should have seen it. I should have done something." He looked at them. Really looked. "You earned your place. And more." Kahlil nodded once. Kendrick stayed quiet. Not to be rude, but because the apology wasn't the goal. They hadn't trained for revenge. They hadn't fought for applause. They had fought for something deeper. Dignity, self-worth. And now, without ever raising their voices, they had been heard. 2 weeks later, the dojo hosted a new student orientation. More parents stayed this time. More questions were asked. A few kids of color joined for the first time in months. Malcolm watched from the back wall, arms crossed, calm. He didn't need to say anything. His presence said enough. Kahlil and Kendrick led warm-ups that day. Not because they were asked, because the other students naturally followed. Their movements were sharp, grounded. Not flashy, just real. During water break, one of the younger boys, maybe 10, small for his age, walked up to Kendrick. "You really beat a black belt." Kendrick crouched to his level. "No," he said with a small smile. "I beat someone who thought the belt made him better." The boy blinked, then grinned. Back on the mat, Sensei Carl announced changes to partner drills, stricter safety oversight, new reporting channels. None of it was said out loud, but everyone knew why. The twins hadn't demanded change. They had simply made it impossible to ignore. And as they stood together, centered and calm, it became clear. Their power wasn't in shouting. It wasn't in proving others wrong. It was in showing what's right by never backing down. That night the garage was quiet again. The bag hung still. The gloves sat untouched. No drills, no shouting. Just the hum of the porch light. And the weight of everything behind them. Malcolm sat on the steps, a cup of coffee in hand. The boys joined him. No words at first. Then Kahlil asked, "So what now?" Malcolm smiled, eyes on the dark street. Now he took a breath. Now you live what you earned. Kendrick leaned back against the railing. We didn't do it to be heroes. No, Malcolm said, nodding. You did it because no one else would. The silence between them was full, not empty. Because they understood. The fights had ended, but the world hadn't changed overnight. People would still judge, still doubt. But now they knew something deeper. They had faced it, endured it, beat it not with rage, but with discipline. Not with revenge, but with resilience. And they didn't need noise to make a statement. Their silence had spoken for them. The kind of silence that demands respect. The kind that shifts rooms. The kind that lives in every quiet fighter who refuses to be broken. That was their legacy. That was their silent power. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more powerful stories of empathy, justice, and silent strength to life. Your support is what fuels this journey. Let's keep standing together and rising higher, one story at a time. Stay safe and inspired.